Welcome back to the R-Rated Podcast. The R-Rated Podcast. This week's guest is... Welcome back to the R-Rated Podcast. We are entering season 3 of the podcast. It is absolutely crazy to say out loud. Everyone who knows me and who has been following this podcast journey knows that it has been a crazy journey. I started this in the kitchen studio, no clue how to start a podcast, but I just kept trying every week and brought on new guests and wanted to talk about new topics that were really happening in the film industry on and off screen. And now we're here. So thank you, everyone. First of all, I feel so happy and special that this is even happening. I'm so excited to tell you guys more, but it's also still a secret. So it's like, oh, what do I give away? What do I not give away? But I guess we'll start season 3 with some fun new stuff that I've been working on over, the holiday break. And I guess I could say holiday break and leading into the new year, just because I did take some time off. So for anyone following my journey of where I'm at, what I'm working on, the latest big project was Fatal Attraction. I was managing the COVID department team there, and I honestly had a really good experience. It was such a learning experience, but it was a good learning experience because, I'm someone that learns by literally going out into the field and doing it. I'm not the typical person that is going to sit there and learn it from a textbook and you're going to I don't know. I have to see it with my own eyes. I have to see how the process goes down. So being thrown into situations that might be a little stressful at first actually work out for me in the long run, which is super weird. But hey, I guess that's just me. I don't know. But yeah, so that show really sucked the life out of me, but it was a great experience. I had such a fun time working on that show. I'm super excited to do it again, honestly. So I want to share what happened after Fatal Attraction, because I feel like it wouldn't be right to start off the season not knowing what I've been up to, what I'm doing now, what's going on. So basically, Fatal ended on November 30th. That was my official last day. Some people ended earlier because they didn't have to stay through the whole post-production process. But I did, since I was the last one of the team. I was there till November 30th. So the last few days in the office was really lonely, honestly. There weren't a lot of people there, and I was just making sure that editors were getting tested and staying in cadence with each other. But I didn't really have much to worry about because editors kind of keep to themselves in their room. And when I say in their room, I mean when you walk into the floor, the post-production floor plan, if you walk into the unit, everyone has their own little individual offices with their computers or desktops, whatever they prefer. And they are editing in this dark, not dark, creepy space, but editors like to have their vibe. Every editor is different, but you're not going to want to have all this natural light coming in and reflecting on your computer screen. So it's definitely more of a different vibe than on set. So anyway, I felt it was very lonely, very different. But it was really cool to see the process. Obviously, it's a little bit different from what I was sharing earlier in earlier episodes in the last season, when I was sharing the exact breakdown of what I was doing on set, good and bad days. But I feel that's what makes the podcast so special, is being able to talk and share about these crazy situations, because it just wouldn't be real if I was sitting here and only giving you guys the good, because every industry, not just the film industry, has good and bad days, right? Has good and bad people working in there, has good and bad situations. There's so many good and bad things that can happen in each industry. And I just want to really sit here and give you guys the honest truth versus, just highlighting the glamorous things that, yes, they do happen too. Obviously we have the Oscars coming up, the Grammys, and then Super Bowl. Let's talk about the Super Bowl. I think now it's been enough time where I can talk about it. Oh, I just get so excited. I keep jumping back and forth. But basically, after Fatal Attraction, I was I need a break. I literally need a break. So I decided to take the month of December off. Mind you, this was the first time ever I was able to save enough money where I could take off a whole month and it wouldn't affect me as much as like it would have like last year or whatever, past jobs. And so I was like, okay, like honestly, like I really put in the work and really work these long hours. I'm exhausted. I would love to just take time off. And the holidays are coming up. Everyone's spending time with their family, and it's kind of seemed like a good time to do it. Productions don't really start around the holidays just because, what's the point of starting for 2 weeks, like the first 2 weeks of December, then breaking for Christmas, and then after that for New Year's, which you get, it's like you have to give mandatory days off, and I think you get like 2 weeks off for the holidays in the film industry. So basically, it just isn't worth it to start a production in December. So sometimes productions start in January, which seems like makes sense. Like, the new start to the year, like, let's start like right away the first month of the new year. But it's actually been a little bit slower this year. I was expecting to take December off and then kind of hop into a new project in January, which I have been working other gigs, but it hasn't been like a full-time job, which kind of like throws me back to like my days before I got this job, before I worked Vigilant and before I worked Santa Set, where I was like more freelancing. And mind you, it's super fun to do that. I love it because you're like constantly like working on new shit like every month, but it is scary because it's not steady. And I'm someone that likes, a schedule, like consistency, which sounds wild because it's like, why did you pick this industry if you want that? I feel like you can have that after you reach a certain level of being in the industry, or like if you want to be more studio route. If you do choose to do more freelancing, obviously that's going to be more your life, but it also takes a certain personality for that. And I think I have what it takes to do the freelance lifestyle, like for a little bit, like months at a time, but I don't think I can do it full time. It kind of freaks me out. I'm not going to lie. I think I need something more steady. That's just me personally. So basically, it was weird in the month of December. Like I almost like didn't know how to like fully like take it off, just because I've been, grinding the last 6 months, like putting in all these hours, that it like was so engraved into me and like so normal. Like I was like, well, of course I gotta like, keep doing this. But I was like, no, like if I want to like stay mentally strong, physically strong, because like, trust me, it was a great experience, right? But it did affect my mental health and physical health. And when I say that, I mean, I don't want to like make it sound super dramatic, but I did lose a lot of sleep. I was very sleep deprived. You're driving when you're tired, you're putting in a lot of long hours and days and overtime. So, you're not really taking care of like, you should be drinking a lot of water, but are you always drinking a lot of water? It depends on you. I personally didn't. I made the mistake of drinking a lot of coffee because I was just trying to stay up and make it through the week. So instead of drinking, like a water bottle an hour or whatever, I was drinking a coffee an hour, which was not great. So it was affecting me like really bad. And then also I was working out before, I was going to the gym like 3 times a week, sometimes even up to 5 days, depending on if my schedule allowed it. But as soon as I started the show, that all went out the window. I like completely stopped working out, and I felt like my diet was worse. And, half of being healthy is your diet. Like, yes, going to the gym, you get like, you get your muscle gains and you want that. That looks good. But at the same time, what you put in your body, what you're eating determines a lot of your health and your diet. So, when there's a lot of crafty and you're just, working these like 14, 16-hour days and they have all those snacks in the world, you get tempted. You're like, oh, I want this. Do you need it? Not necessarily, but you do it. All right. So now I want to jump into what I was working on. There was 2 big things that I was working on, but it was day playing. It wasn't like a full-time thing, like I said. So, like I said, it was really hard to take days off, and I got asked to do a couple COVID gigs in between. And this was in December. I had like 2 weeks where I wasn't really doing anything. And I was like, okay, like I'm enjoying not doing anything, but I still was like, it doesn't hurt to have money coming in, right? It doesn't hurt to like work on a set and network and meet new people. And maybe it wasn't a great set for me personally as like a filmmaker, but if it helps benefit, meeting someone that has awesome experience or insight into the industry that I can bring on the podcast and, share with you guys. That's another reason why I kind of put myself out there. Is it scary sometimes? Yes, it is, just because I want to believe I'm an extrovert, but sometimes I'm like, maybe I'm an introvert. I have introvert tendencies. But anyway, so basically there's this project. I can't say the name of it, but I'll give a few hints, and I'm sure, if it gets picked up, you guys will put it together. So it was a pilot, what I was working on. And a pilot usually means like a concept episode, basically, for a network to decide like, yes, this was good enough. We are going to pick it up. We are going to make this a full season, a full show, whatever. But before they do all that, they obviously they give you some money, and they're like, okay. So let me start from okay. So you go and you pitch your script, and they're like, okay, great. Like, we love it. But we're going to give you a certain amount of money. Shoot the first episode. That'll be the pilot. Shoot it like you would if like the show was getting picked up. Make it as best as you can. And if we like it, then we will pick it up and we will make it a full show. Or they realize, okay, it's actually not as good as the pitch was. We're not going to pick it up, and it just gets canceled and never, leaves that room or wherever. It doesn't see past those pairs of eyes that decided no, which sucks. It is harsh, but I think sometimes we got to be real, because sometimes things get filtered through, or like I feel like we just keep watching movies that are really not that great, but maybe because they have connections or ends, these movies are being made, and you're just kind of like, really, like this movie? But anyway, so if your movie gets past that point, if your show gets past that point, you get the money to start filming. You put everything together. You get wardrobe, you have your director, you have your cameraman, you have your actors, you have everything that you would need in a movie, in a real, like if you were making a season in a show, whatever the hell you're doing. This episode, this pilot, you got to take it just as serious. So they asked me if I could help out with the COVID department and basically, test anybody that would need to get tested, to stay in cadence with the crew, making sure people wearing their masks on set. It was a very, very cold week that week in LA, like really cold, like not normal cold, like strange cold for LA, for California. And actually people wore their masks because it was so freezing. It was like nice to have like a little shield on your face. So that actually wasn't a big deal. That was pretty cool. But things were a little bit disorganized. I'm not going to lie. There was poor communication on just like between different departments. And sometimes when that happens, there's like a ripple effect, and it delays things, and things start to, bleed over into like, oh, like we have to cut a scene, or, oh, like you have to go to lunch later. And in situations like where you're like, oh, boohoo, you had to go to lunch later. Like, yeah, it doesn't sound bad, but when you are working at like 5 or 6 a.m. and then you are like, you're working, and then you expect to have a break at a certain time, but then it gets pushed. It sucks. Has it happened before on other sets? Yes, it has. So when it did happen, I was like, okay, sucks, but it's happened before, not the end of the world. It's like your flight getting delayed. It happens, but you just fucking deal with it. And that's it, right? But it got delayed like 3 hours past. So that was like almost like illegal, not gonna lie, a little crazy. Like, you're not supposed to do that. I was a little shocked by that. I was starving at this point, and by the time I was ready to eat, there was no heaters anywhere by like where you're supposed to sit by catering. So I was like shivering. Like, I couldn't even eat the food because I was so cold, because it felt like it was negative degrees. I know it wasn't, but it was probably like, I think it was like 40 or 35. It was really cold. It was really, really cold in LA in December. And it was like just a couple days. It was really random. And my hands were like literally frozen. Like, I still like have PTSD from it. And I couldn't even eat the food because it was just so freezing. And I ended up just going to the location just so I could stay warm. And it was one of those really like stylish, like Hollywood Hill homes. So all these like houses have like big ass windows, and they were like opening it so they can like put camera through and stuff. So it wasn't even like warm in the house. So it was just like a survival of the fittest, like on set. Like, you needed to wear like fucking ski gear, like mountain stuff. Like it was so cold. Like if you were ready to hit the Alps or the slopes, like that's really how you need to treat that set day. Like it was crazy. I met a lot of nice people though, so I'm glad that I did go. I was freezing and miserable. I'm not going to lie. I got sick after the shoot too because I didn't have enough layers. I was shivering. I was cold. And then being, probably dehydrated and also like not eating that much because I was so cold. I just felt so shitty the next day. So I planned better when I went back. But those are just like little things that happen on set sometimes where you're like, damn, like this wouldn't happen in like an office. Like when you go to an office job, you expect like, you're going to be indoors, you're going to have a 9 to 5, like certain things are going to go down. You're going to have a meeting like this and that, but at like 12 or 1, you'll get your lunch. But like on set days, like you really don't know. Like sometimes just shit can go way longer. And then next thing you know, you're just not eating all day. But yeah, anyway. And honestly, not to be like a complainer, but I do get a little grumpy if I don't eat. So I was just like, oh God, I do not want to be here. But like I said, I met a lot of new people. They were really cool. And it was also cool because I met people that not met people. I actually like saw people that I worked with on Fatal Attraction. They were working the same set. Not everybody, but a few people. Like there was some departments like props, the director, the script supervisor, and then COVID. Like there's just a few people sprinkled in that were working again. So it's interesting. Like some people really hop into the next thing after a show ends. Like they're just like, like they're freelancing, right? And like this is their life. Or like not even freelancing, like even studio. Like the studio will ask you like, oh, like, or your union, like, are you ready to hop on this show after you finish that show? And it's like either like yes, because you want to have the constant money coming in, or no, because you need a break. So basically it was funny to see a lot of like most of the Fatal Attraction crew ended up taking a break, but there were still some that ended up working this pilot, and it was the same director from the first block. So it was really cool seeing her in action again and directing something completely different than what I saw her directing. So it was really cool to see her range. So I was happy to see that. Just to give like a little like hint of what it was, it's a pilot for HBO Max. So look out for that show on that streaming platform. It has Kristen Serrano's in it, which is the girl who played Selena in the Netflix series Selena. And she's also in The Walking Dead, if I believe. And then I'm trying to think like what I could give away without really giving it away. That I'm like, okay, what can you find already online? I think this was already on Deadline, so I wouldn't be giving away too much, but it's basically like a fake reality TV show. Like they're filming it like as if it were a reality TV show, but it's not. It's all scripted. And Kristen Serrano's is almost like the Kim Kardashian of her family, but Latina style. So yeah, I don't know. It sounds like it's going to be kind of interesting. Obviously there's going to be drama. They are mixing it like kind of like a telenovela soap opera style, bringing it to HBO Max. I'm very curious. Maybe it's going to be like maybe like Jane the Virgin mixed with like Selena mixed with like Kardashians and Vanderpump. I don't know. Like that's kind of like what I got out of that when I was there. But it was really cool to see the actual set. So I was there on the day that they were filming, and it was going pretty quick. So when there was like mess ups or slip ups from certain departments, it really delayed it. And it was like, okay, we have to lose that scene or that shot because there was only a limited amount of days. It wasn't like a whole show where you have like this whole block of time and you can like rearrange things. It's like, no, we only have this week to shoot the pilot. If we miss it, we miss it. Whatever we got, we got. So it was cool to see that in action and people like moving quicker and it being, I felt like it was a different vibe though, just because since it is a pilot, no one's getting too attached yet because they're like, this might not get picked up. Obviously, you're putting your full effort into it because you want it to get picked up. So there is that like, guys, we got to like make it as best as we can. But there's also the like, I'm not going to get like too attached because if it doesn't get picked up, this can't just be my main thing that I was working on. And it was like, no, like all my time spent on this and it didn't get picked up. So it was like an interesting vibe on set that I like started to feel, but that was that experience. I can't say the name of it, but with that information alone, you should be able to find it. And I also did a day where I was at a prep and strike location. So basically a prep and strike location. I don't know if I've mentioned this before on the podcast. I might have, honestly. I've done so many episodes. I don't know what I say anymore. I sometimes go back and I'm like, oh, I did say that. But basically a prep and strike location is when certain crew members of different departments go to the next location or the location where they're going to film and start setting up for the next day, or like the shooting day, basically. So, you could have grips there that are like heavy lifting stuff, setting up their C-stands for whatever. Maybe art department needs something hung up. Art department's there setting up like, paintings, or if it's like a kid room, hanging up posters, or, picture frames with the family photos in it, really making it seem like it's that, like, their home, they really live there. Like, you have to, like, yes, it's a pilot. Yes, it's a movie. Yes, it's a fake family situation. It's not real, but you have to make it seem real. So you have to go to the full extent of like portraying it to the fullest, like really like every little detail. And honestly, it really does shock me, because like it never fails to surprise me, like at the art department team, like they did think about that detail. Like you might be like, no, like you're not gonna think about like that, or no one's gonna even look at that. And it's like, no, like they do. And it's a good thing that you do put that there, because that one thing that you didn't think was gonna be important, people will notice. For example, like if we made a movie right now and they're like, we're gonna make this a scene where you're podcasting in the movie. And so I'd be like, okay, you have to like recreate my corner so it looks like my podcast like corner, my little studio. So obviously, if I didn't have a brick wall, you guys would notice. Like if it was just like all white, it wouldn't look like my studio. Or if it was just like, I don't know, like anything else and not brick, you would notice it and it wouldn't be matched to what like actually, the real image is. And so, you might not think like it'd be important, but it is important. And that's why you have a department and a person in charge of everything for a movie, every little thing you can think of. But anyway, so when I went, I saw them setting everything up. It was really cool. Every department was kind of like, working amongst themselves. It's weird. Like, it's not like all these departments are then they're all like hanging out together and like, hey, like, what are you working on? It's more like they all just like huddle up and work on their stuff. Like, okay, guys, like we're here to do like the art stuff. Like everybody like, gently put the paintings down. Then we'll like, whatever the game plan is, right? Like every department like huddles up. It's almost like gang mentality where like, it's like you stick with your group, we stick with our group. Obviously, like departments help each other because it is a team effort. It really is. Making a movie, like I said many times on the podcast, it is a team effort. But most of the time you are there with your department. You know what you're there to do. And if you are going to be working with another department, that prior. Usually, like rarely do you ever go into it and you're like, I didn't know I was going to work with these people. Like that's kind of weird and not really a film industry thing. Like everything in the film industry is very planned out. So if you are not a planner, you're more of like I'm spontaneous. I don't really care. I'll just like take life how it goes, which I love. I love that for you, because I wish I could be more spontaneous. Maybe be a grip or something, because you're not that into like having to make a schedule, unless you're like the person managing the grips, then you do. So there's levels to all this shit. One thing that I want to point out before we wrap this episode up is I was able to work a fun little event after. I don't know why I said little, because when I tell you what it is, you're going to be like, it's not little, you're a liar. But after this pilot that I did, that I just literally vented to you guys about, I definitely took my break. I went home for Christmas, had the best time, came back to LA for New Year's, didn't do much, had a nice dinner. Like, I was like, let's relax. Like, let's enjoy this. Had a good time. And then the new year hit and I was starting to get a little stressed again, because now we're in January. And like I said, I was like, okay, I need to like find a job now. Like no more fucking around. Like no more like taking your break. Like a month off is plenty of time. Even 3 weeks. It wasn't like a full month, but like I was like 3 weeks is plenty of time. So we're in January. I reached out to a company that I work for. They said that a lot of studios are a little bit slow to start productions. They're still getting certain scripts approved, certain budgets approved. So I don't know, things were just to a slower start. I think also like inflation and hitting a recession probably, and like just a lot of things are changing in 2023, and you know, things are just expensive right now. So a lot of the studios aren't producing movies as quick as we normally do every year. So it's been a slower start for me, and January passed now. And well, before it passed, it was when it started, I was like, oh my God, like, what do I do? Like, I am, you know, scared. I don't have a like job lined up. But I reached out and she said, don't worry, like, you've reached out to me plenty of times. Like, when there's a gig, I will let you know. Like, so I remained on her radar. So hopefully that is enough to remind her of like, hey, like, as soon as you get a gig in LA, like, please put me on it. I am planning to do one more COVID managing production gig, and then I will probably pivot to more directing and writing full time, hopefully, fingers crossed, and podcasting. So hopefully we can see that journey slowly happen in this season. I don't know. You guys saw my journey kind of change from the last season, going from testing to managing to, you know, freelancing and documentary, like all this stuff, which the documentary, I will give you guys an update in a couple episodes. We are working on it to be finalized very soon. Things got a little slowed down due to, again, more production things coming up and coming in the way, which it always happens. It stresses me out when it does because, like I said, I always like want things to go to as planned, and when it doesn't, it like shakes me a little bit. But I also have to remember, like, it's all part of the industry, so it's not that serious. Anyway, so I basically ended up getting a text from a friend because I realized, like, okay, the job that I'm working, well, I reached out to a friend before that. Sorry, that didn't even make sense. So basically, after I reached out to my job and was like, you know, they're like, you're going to wait, but maybe in February. Like, they're like, okay, February, you're probably going to have to start something. So enjoy January, basically. And I was like, oh my God, like, 2 months. I'm like, I didn't plan for this. Like, yes, I save money, but it stresses me out. Like, I cannot go more than 2 months. Like, that's way too much. Like, no. So basically I was like, I'm going to just like see what other people are doing, text my friends. And I texted Tiana, who was on season 2. She has worked on the Shark Tank. She has worked on the Hype. She has worked the Oscars. She's done a lot of different stuff. So she kind of has a lot of like different gigs going on. And I hit her up and I was like, hey, like, you know, is anything going on in January? Like, I'm not really working full time. I would love to just get like some random side gigs here and there just to fill up my time and still get some checks coming in, and it's not like a completely dry month, because I feel like that's just like scary for anybody, right? So she was like, yeah, like, let me ask around. I'll let you know. Turns out she referred me to this one lady, and I didn't know anything about this. Like, I didn't know she referred me to her, or like they were talking. But this lady reached out to me and was like, hey, like, are you available to work this gig in Santa Clarita? You know, it's like these and these dates. It's flexible. You know, I don't expect you to drive every day to Santa Clarita because it's far, but, you know, it's a gig. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, yeah, I don't want to drive to Santa Clarita, like, necessarily. But when I actually mapped it, since I live in the Valley, it actually wasn't bad at all. It was like a 26-minute drive. So I'm like, oh, like, this is actually maybe meant to be. So I was like, perfect, I'll do it. When I was working Fatal Attraction, I was driving to downtown LA, which is also a 30-minute drive. But since everyone and their mom is going to downtown in the morning or after work, it takes like an hour to get there. So it was just ridiculous. So I was like, okay, this 26-minute drive, like, no problem, I can do it. I Google the address because I do that before every every production I go to, because I'm just like, I need to know like what the layout is, like how parking is. Like, I'm like, I cannot just go into this blind not knowing like what I'm walking into. So I'm like Googling, like, okay, like, looks like I could park there. Looks like you just, you know, turn on this street. It doesn't seem like a confusing place. Doesn't look sketch, whatever. So basically I took the gig. I didn't really know much information. All I knew was the rate, the location, and the days they needed help, and like and I was like, what are the responsibilities? And they told me the responsibilities. Mind you, it's another COVID gig, so I'm very familiar with this. I feel very confident. I think once you start working a couple gigs with like the same department, especially like since this is going to be like my 3rd year doing COVID stuff, I don't feel like nervous when I get a new gig, but it's just like, okay, how is this new crew going to take all the like COVID protocols or precautions? Because every production's different. Some sets are very strict, some are not. So it's not even that like I'm scared about doing a new job. It's more like how's the crew going to be? And like, are they going to accept me? Because the position that I'm doing isn't necessarily like the most like position on set, just because it's not like a creative one, right? It's not part of the arts. But I'm hoping that this will be one of my, I don't know, like I just hope that I have a couple more and then I get a pivot over, just because I mean, my goal at the end of the day is writing, directing, but COVID pays the bills, and, you know, I got to do what I got to do to get by and to be able to put the money into my own craft. And if I can save up money doing the COVID managing stuff, then I think that's my best option until we get out of the situation. And then I can really focus on what I want to do. I'm still doing what I want to do. I'm just not doing it full time. I'm doing it more part time. So I'm like in this weird, awkward stage of my life of like managing, trying to be an adult and like pay for my bills and like follow my dreams. Anyway, so I accept the job. I go to Santa Clarita and I'm like, what is this? Because I realized like it's not really I started to realize it wasn't like a show. It wasn't like a production. It was more like a live event. And they're like, you're going to be watching, like, you're going to be testing dancers. You're going to be watching a rehearsal and just like, you know, making sure like everyone, all the dancers and the band members like stay in cadence and, you know, everything's good to go. And if there's any like last minute testing that needs to be done, like you're there to basically make it happen. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, like I can do that. No problem. Didn't think anything of it. I kind of just like walked into it like, whatever. And I walk in and sure shit, it is the Super Bowl practice, like the Super Bowl halftime show practice. I was so confused because I was like, wait a minute, I've seen like some of these dancers before. Like I was like, what is happening? And I was like, this isn't a movie. I was like, wait, is this Step Up? Like what is happening? No, but turns out it was actually the practice for the Super Bowl halftime show, this year's Super Bowl halftime show. So yes, they rehearsed the show in LA, in Santa Clarita at the LA North Studios. And after a couple of weeks of rehearsing there, they are going to move to Arizona and finish up their rehearsals in Arizona at the stadium, just to really get those finishing touches and completed looks and performance and whatever. But basically I walked in and I was like, holy shit, like this is awesome. I had no idea. It made the job even more exciting because I really had no expectations of anything. And I walked in and I basically just helped check in all the dancers, wrote down their little like information, got them tested. Once they got tested, they had to wait 30 minutes before they were cleared. Once they were cleared, they could go and dance. And basically, it's a mix of boys, or not boys, women and men, and honestly ranging from all ages, but they were very young. I would say mostly the dancers were anywhere from like 19 to 24 was like the average age, from all over the world. I heard all these different accents, which I thought was so fun and so cool that Rihanna is like so inclusive and open and has like every body type, every color. Like it was really cool to see every hair color. It was just fun. Every race, every like just everything. It was just all there. So, that was really cool to see. And once we checked everybody in and they were starting to rehearse, it was kind of just a waiting game. Like you really were just there for like you really just had to work hard like that first hour. And then you kind of just got to like roam around and, you know, make sure everything was okay. Like people were wearing their mask, eat some snacks. And it was cool. I was able to see parts of the rehearsal. And it was just like cool seeing everybody like so in sync and like so like in tune with the music and the beat, and everyone's flowing and just like mixing so well. It was really cool to see. And the famous choreographer who actually works with Rihanna a lot was there, and I recognized her right away. So she actually came into my line, and like at first I forgot her name. Like I knew her name, but it was like when I was just like surprised it was her. I don't know why I was surprised, because like I should have known because I watched like a lot of Rihanna stuff. But I was like, wait, I know her. And then I was like, what's her name? I was blanking. But her name was Paris Goebel, I believe is how you say her last name. She is a famous dancer, choreographer. That's such a tricky word for me. I don't know why. And she does all of Rihanna's Fenty fashion shows where she does all the dancing while they like show off the clothes, the lingerie. And they just released volume 4 of her fashion show not too long ago on Amazon Prime, which Johnny Depp was in it. I think I actually talked about it in season 2. And it was really cool to like just kind of see like all the different people she includes in it. And I wouldn't expect anything less for her halftime show. So I'm not surprised like that she's doing that. I'm not surprised that she's staying loyal, having her main girl like, do the dancing, teach the dancing to all the other dancers, and really like trust the process of having a great halftime show. So she was there. I checked her in. She was really nice. She's from New Zealand. She flew out. I don't know if she personally flew out these other dancers, but the Super Bowl basically flew out some dancers from New Zealand that Paris works really well with, that has done like most of her shows with. And they were just flowing in sync, dancing. And it was just really cool to hear the mashup of all the different Rihanna songs that they were playing, because I was like, oh my God, I love all these songs. And I'm like, I know all of them. It's gonna be so cool to hear it. It was just really cool. And then we were getting to like almost midnight. It was like 11 p.m. And we were told we were going to be there till 1 a.m. So 2 hours left. I was definitely getting a little sleepy, ready to go home. And they're like, okay, main talent is arriving. We need you to test who she's arriving with. And we're like, okay. And I was like, main talent? I was like, would Rihanna really be showing up at 11 p.m.? Like, but I'm like, makes sense. Like, she is the main performer and she does have to like practice and rehearse with them at some point, right? And I'm like, maybe she just put the baby down. Like, she just had some time to come and rehearse. So she came and they were rehearsing, and I didn't know that she was already there because I was, testing the people that were, I knew she was there, but like I didn't think I was going to see her because I was testing the people she was with and she was rehearsing. And I didn't think like, once she shows up, like you're not gonna be able to just like walk in and out. So I totally forgot like that she was there, and I was just kind of like hanging out, like trying to get through the rest of the, I guess, like remaining 2 hours. It's about like midnight. I'm like, I'm going to use the restroom and then like kind of just get ready to slowly leave. I'm like walking to get a snack after the restroom. I pass the stage and sure shit, she is sitting there talking to Paris, talking about the dance routine. She was literally glowing. I don't know if it's just because she just recently had a baby, but she looked fantastic. Fantastic. She was definitely wearing that Fenty Beauty. Her skin was on point, and it was really cool to see her just because I'm still such a fan, honestly. But like when I was a little girl, I loved Rihanna. It all started with Umbrella and Needed Me, like Wild Thoughts, Bad, like everything. Like there's just so many good songs. So it was really cool to see her in doing her thing, honestly, like, and kind of like coming up with a game plan for the show, basically. And yeah, so now that's my little insight of the two things that I was working on when I wasn't really going to be working on anything. I was like, I'm taking a break. I was kind of forced into doing the second gig just because I got a little nervous, went into panic mode, and didn't know what the future holds. But I think that's all part of the industry. Like, we always have those moments where we're like, oh no, what's going to come next? But, keep putting yourself out there. It's normal to hit those road bumps and have those like slow months. It's completely normal. It doesn't mean that you're bad or like you're not good or whatever. It just means it's a slow month, and you never know. Your next month could be super slammed and backed up. So fingers crossed. That was not fingers crossed. That was a thumbs up. Thumbs up. Everything will be great. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. One fun fact I do want to throw out there before we end this episode is that, actually, I guess two things. So the stage for the Super Bowl, they actually build the stage that they're going to use for the halftime show in the sound studios in LA and Santa Clarita. And so the dancers were able to rehearse, same with Rihanna, they were able to rehearse with the proper stage since day one. And they actually transported the stage from LA to Arizona for the Super Bowl halftime show. So I thought that was really cool, and I wanted to share that. I don't know how they're going to transport that, but I'm assuming it maybe like breaks down into three pieces. I don't know, but yeah, people who deal with stages, let us know. I'm very curious. And another fun fact, I will be flying to Austria to visit some family and go skiing, but I'm so excited to actually have two guests over there that I'm going to be meeting up with to record a podcast episode. So I'm super excited for that. We're going to have a little switch up. Make sure to stay tuned for those because you definitely want to see that. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you guys so much. Bye. The R-Rated Podcast.